Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with Victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And you know, this is where us victory chicks and you guys who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to make our lives better, more fulfilling, and give us a little more jazz and sparkle. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour in this brand new baby year. You know, I remember my mother telling me, this is before she moved into the retirement community at Maris Grove, she was telling me something interesting. She said, it was like a funny thing. She said, I'm nervous to go to bed and I'm nervous to wake up. And that sounded kind of funny, but then she explained that she worried she lived alone, so she worried what would happen if she got sick during the night. And then during the day, she wondered what would happen if she fell or something. Well, it really startled me. And the first thing I thought, at that time, was that her move to Maris Grove was definitely timely. But over the years, I've thought about what she said so many times because, you know, it's really not different for you or me. Of course, not like my mother, but none of us know what's going to happen in a year or a week or a day. Life is an exercise in not knowing what's next. So here's the thing. When I saw a book called The Journey of Not Knowing, I was instantly interested. Then I learned that its author, Julie Benezet, worked at Amazon in its early days. Talk about a job that's a journey of not knowing. So I asked Julie to join us at Happy Hour today to give us some tips for navigating our own unknown in this brand new baby year. And, you know, there's so much, so she's going to be here shortly. You know, there's so much going on in the news. Well, actually, so much going on with this salacious new book about Trump that it's left the left salivating while the right's calling it fake news, and who knows where it's going to shake out. But you know what? We could talk about that, except I haven't talked with you in a couple weeks. So I'm curious. I'm wondering how your holidays were. Did you manage to stay healthy? I mostly did. I have to say that I had a bad reaction to it. I had like an infection on my face, and was taking some medication. I had a bad reaction that left me with a nasty rash that was itching like crazy. Well, I saw the dermatologist this week, and I got some cream, which cost just for the cream more than I spend on a nice dinner out. But as crazy annoyed as the itchy rash is, the rest of me is healthy, and the cream seems to be working, so that part's good. And my experience with medication made me think, if I made resolutions, a good one to have for this year would be to stay the heck out of doctor's offices and away from those pricey medications. Look, I was just shocked. I don't have prescription insurance. So it was like $100 and some for this little tube of something. So I don't want to do that in the new year. But so many people I know had some kind of coughing thing. Did you get it? And whatever that coughing thing is, it's one of those things that seems to want to hang on for like a really long time. I'm not sure if people got it because it got cold so late in the summer or late in the season that the summer germs didn't die off, or because of stress, which there's always plenty of that at the end of the year. Now, I don't know how you are, but personally, I find that the 6 weeks over Christmas, starting with Thanksgiving, make up the most stressful part of the year. Do you ever feel that way too? I used to work with this woman. Her name was Mrs. Evans. And she would say about the holidays, glad to see him come, glad to see him go. I really didn't have a full understanding of that when I was 20. But, by 40, I really got it. Because, we try to do so much, the gifts, the cards, the baking, the visiting, that it gets just too crazy. Now, I stopped doing the whole gift-giving thing years ago. What I usually try to do is just spend more time with people. I used to bake a lot at Christmas, so that when I visited somebody, I'd bring a box of my homemade cookies, which were always special recipe cookies and really good. And people said they look forward to them. But you know what? If you're a baker, you know this. You need time and patience and calm energy to bake good cookies. And I've just been so busy these last couple of years, and I'm not talking about whipping up a batch of chocolate chips because, those are easy. I'm talking about fancy cookies that need personal attention. You have to be in a cookie-making frame of mind to do those, and frankly, I just haven't been. I baked one batch this year, and they were awful. They tasted okay, but they looked sloppy, like I did them with little kids, It's like, but it wasn't with little kids, it was just me. So I passed on the baking, and all I made was 6 eggs at Pitzel's. The reality is, all my big creativity between between last Christmas and this Christmas went to writing the 5-year marriage. In fact, last year, between Christmas and New Year's, you might remember me telling you this. I was holed up in a hotel in Gettysburg by myself, working through a writer's block. In fact, I did that twice last year, once in Gettysburg in the winter and once in the spring in Avalon. And both weeks helped me get over that hump. And listen, speaking of 5-year marriage, the hard copy of the book got posted on Amazon over Christmas. The Kindle isn't up yet, and the official launch isn't until February, so it's not critical yet. But as soon as I have a schedule about book events, I'll let you know. And I hope you'll stop by for one of them. I'm excited about this book, and some copies I think have already sold on Amazon, so that's cool. And I'm excited about this brand new baby year. I don't actually make resolutions, but I start the year with a set of goals. And I have business goals and personal goals, and then Joseph and I have our relationship goals. In fact, that's how we spent New Year's Day. It's the exciting two that we are. Just talking about what things we have for the year and what we want to do as a couple. And then we try and figure out, we haven't finished this part yet, we try and figure out how we fit our personal and business goals into our relationship goals. Sometimes that's the trickiest part. At the end of last year, we both set some things in motion for our businesses and some of our personal goals. We bought one of those. I'm such a sucker for infomercials that I just really can't watch them. But I bought one of those ones. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's that total gym thing. But I will tell you, if you're thinking about buying the total gym, it's not as easy as they show on TV, and it's not as easy to set up as they show you on TV. Just so you know. But we have 2 relationship goals, and one of them is to partner in promoting the 5-year marriage, and the other is about our house. Because we've been living in this house for almost 20 years. Now, it was new construction then, so the first year was all about the builder fixing stuff. And then we were painting and papering. Then we coasted with just maintenance for a couple years. But for those of you who know new construction, unlike a resale where fix-ups are staggered, with new construction, everything starts breaking around the same time. The heater, the air conditioner, plumbing, kitchen, everything needs to be replaced or renovated. So, you know what I mean, right? So that's our goal for this year. And looking at figuring out how we're going to do some of that stuff without breaking the bank. Because, we did the kitchen. That was the really big thing. So, that's not as expensive as renovating a bathroom. Oh, but geez, look at the time. And Julie Benezet is here. So I told you earlier that I invited Julie because I was intrigued about her ideas around not knowing the future. But here's a little bit more. Julie is an executive coach who taught leadership to executives at Harvard for 10 years. And then she founded the Journey of Not Knowing, a leadership development program. She was also the first global real estate executive at Amazon. So she talks and writes extensively about navigating the scariness of the new and the unknown. I could use some of that. I'll bet you could too. So go get some good happy hour something to drink, and then come back for tips about navigating the new. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. You're with me, Annmarie Kelly, and our guest today, Julie Benezet. Julie, hi, and welcome.
Hi.
Julie, you know what? You're a West Coast girl now, but you were born right here in Pennsylvania, huh?
I was on the other end of the state from you, but yes, Pennsylvania, born but not raised.
So you didn't live there for a long time?
No, I lived in Pennsylvania 3 years, and my parents put me under their arm and took me to Colorado.
And you know, I was reading about this in The Journey of Not Knowing, and instead of doing like a bunch of like typical kid things like riding bikes and playing board games, you were in a tree house.
Yes.
So what was
That's why I was
like?
smiling when you were talking about you and your husband doing your house projects. I said, well, that is the ultimate relationship test, but I find those things fun.
Well, you know, I always say when people are getting married, I say the two things that a couple needs to do before they get married is they need to wallpaper a bathroom and they need to take ballroom dancing lessons. Because if you can do those two things and still want to be with that person, then you should get married.
It's a great test.
Yeah. But now who was doing were you building the treehouse or did you help building the treehouse?
Well, good leaders always delegate, and I was a kid of 8 or 9, and I would design them. My brother would build them, and I had 2 of them, and I renovated them every year. And every year I'd go out, size it up, decide what modifications need to be made, and my brother would just step up and get to work.
Oh, he was good. You were lucky, huh?
I was very lucky.
Yeah. In fact, he's part of the dedication in your book. You dedicated your book to a couple people, including him.
Yes.
So you were the idea person, huh?
Well, yeah, I just always had this itch. I've always had a love affair with the new and trying things out, even though I was a shy kid and not particularly athletic, but I just love to turn things on their edge. So having people around that could enable me in that was a pretty great thing. And my brother was great for that, as were my parents.
So that was good. I wasn't very athletic either, but I read books. You know?
Well, that's what my sisters did. They'd lie around. They'd go and sit in the tree houses and read books, but they would never participate in their redesign.
I know, Julie, I would have liked to be your friend so that I could have used your tree house, you know?
It was a pretty great tree house.
Yeah. Listen, Julie, as we're getting started in this brand new baby year, a lot of us victory chicks and our guys have been doing things like setting goals and making vision boards and things, but not everybody, because some listeners I know are the I don't make resolutions type. But you know, we're old enough to be pretty confident that we know one thing, that this year will have some ups and downs. And also by midlife, and Victory Chicks and you guys, Julie has a 30-year-old daughter, so she's right in the ballpark with us. There's something I didn't consider before. As we're getting older, we're navigating new territories, not just with our careers and relationships, but when it comes to our physical and mental health and well-being. And, you know, that can be scary, huh?
Very.
So you know what, Julie, goals or not, I like how you explain it in The Journey of Not Knowing, and you say, and this I'm quoting you, we have an idea where we want to end up, but there's a lot of unknown between here and there. And that really is how it is, isn't it?
Very much so. We have a world that is changing so fast, and the beauty of the Internet is we get to see a lot of things happening. The horrible thing about the Internet, we get to see a lot of things that are happening. Mm-hmm. We can't be unaware of all the things that are going on in the world and their impact on us. It used to be that somebody sitting in Hong Kong had nothing to do with us because they were just on the other side of the globe. Well, now, via the Internet, they're really on the same time zone and can have an impact on our ideas, our products, our reputation, and it just made it people feel like they have less and less control over things, and that anxiety can be very debilitating unless you choose to look at them as an opportunity rather than a deterrent.
Yeah, and sometimes that's hard because especially, at this stage, things move so fast that, you're just getting, like you have a device and you're just getting used to using it, and then you find out it's, like it's 3 stages too old.
Or my iPhone updates and doesn't tell me. And all of a sudden my apps are in different places. It's very distressing.
Yeah, it is. But, I have a lot of questions about all the not knowing stuff. But first I want to talk with you about your 4 years at Amazon. Uh-huh. So when you worked at Amazon, were you, what stage was Amazon when you were there?
Early adolescence. I went there in 1998. I was their first global real estate exec. I reported into the C-suite. It was extremely young, both in the age of the people. I was one of the oldsters at age 44. Mm. In fact, one young woman once said to me, "Julie, you're the oldest person in this company."
Oh, my God.
Which terrified me. We had no systems. We didn't have a business model that was really tested. There was no such thing as an e-commerce customer before us. The organization was new, reorged by the hour, so everything was new. And for me, it was a kid in a candy store possibility, but it also meant it was absolute chaos all the time with a bunch of very smart ex-gens who were very ambitious to go out there and make history.
And you talk about, well, there's 2 things you talk about in the journey of not knowing, and one of them is that, before I ask you about the Jeff Bezos comment, it's that your desk was a door with legs on it?
It was a door desk. Jeff had this theory. He wanted to spend not a penny that did not go directly to customers. So that meant that you had to have the cheapest possible trappings for the employees. And the door, and I'm talking about a wood door, heavy, and it was on 4 4x4 posts that always had cracks out them, and these brackets that were at an angle, so no matter how you decided to sit at your desk, which cost $109, I think, to create, you would bash your kneecaps into those brackets.
Oh, my.
And we tried, and it became the signature piece of furniture for the company to say, hey, look, we are frugal. We don't spend anything on ourselves. We're so customer-oriented. And when we tried to even modestly redesign the door desk so we didn't bash our knees into the brackets and maybe make them a little lighter so they're easier to move, Bezos would have none of it.
Oh, seriously?
Yes. And the only people that got out of it were the Europeans, because when we started to open up our subsidiaries overseas, and I remember the Dutch looking at the door desk saying, no, that is not going to work here. We're just not having one of those.
So they weren't having any of that.
No, they had a sense of style.
Well, the other thing that I thought was really interesting that you talk about with Jeff Bezos is that every time you were having a conversation with him one day, and he said, every time I feel things starting to get calm, I have to turn them on their edge. And you're right, of course, that that was his attitude, but it made your life insane. So what was that like in those days of the wild, wild west of early Amazon?
Well, you had to be quick on your feet. You had to be on your A-plus game. You had to be able to stand up and defend your position because everybody thought they were the smartest person in the class.
Mm.
Jeff Bezos is an interesting man. He's very smart. He's incredibly intellectually curious. He's a libertarian, so he doesn't like a lot of rules.
Mm.
I didn't think I'd ever have to fight over who was going to install a whiteboard with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but I had that argument.
Wow.
But he loves to invent. He'd be the kid that if you invited him, went to his birthday party and you brought him a little truck or something and say, here, a little present, he'd roll it around the floor a little bit and smile and laugh and say, this is cool. And then he'd yank off the wheels and say, let's make this into a hyperplane car. And he'd fly it around. He was always changing things. So for people to succeed at Amazon, you had to be okay with that. And you had to be okay with the stress that went with it. It just was part of the game. That in order for you to constantly try to new things, to reinvent, to apologize, to over-communicate when people were stressed, you had to be okay with that being the way that it was going to be.
So I'm guessing that you honed every single one of your leadership skills, while you were there.
Well, I had been an executive before. I'd worked in the cellular industry, so I knew what it was like to work in an industry where nobody was from it. And here was the internet e-commerce industry where nobody was from it. So I was used to that. But the things that this taught me, aside from the fact that you need to be okay with the discomfort of leading and changing, I also learned you had to be very clear of why you were in a room. What did you want to accomplish? That it's just like in the world we live in today with so much chaos, is we still have to make choices as to how we're going to spend our time and lend our focus. So whether it was a small meeting or a large rollout in another country, I had to know what I wanted to achieve in the moment. And that was a good guiding force for me. It also really tied me to my value system because it was a very combative culture. And I was a lawyer for many years and was one of 5 kids. Believe me, fighting is fine for me. But, I love it, but I'm fine with it. But you had to be able to know why you're doing it and how you're going to conduct yourself. So there were more than a few times where somebody was just abusive, and I had to learn that, okay, I hear you. A, I'm not going to personalize it, which is an important leadership lesson, and B, I'm going to have to really listen to what it is that you are truly worried about. And C, we're going to get to what that is and come to a civilized solution. And it worked. But I had to be very clear that I was about listening, a strong value for me, and connecting, a strong value for me. And that allowed me to succeed as a leader there.
It's interesting that when you talk about that, Julie, because it's something that when I first got into business, I would go to, people would say, well, you have to go to these networking things and you have to do this and this, and I would do them, but I didn't go with what you're saying. I didn't go with that strong sense of purpose and sometimes I didn't go, after a while I learned that I had to go with objectives. Like I had to think out the objectives before I got there. And in my case, because I'm so easily distracted, I'd have to write them down. And really pay attention because it was easy to go. I like the connecting part, so it was easy to go and almost feel like I'm socializing. And there was no presence about that. Julie, I took the test that's on your website, the assessment that's on your website.
Yes.
And I liked it, and I'm in the third, I think I scored like a 45 or whatever. I think it's the 45. But the thing that I laughed the most about, the one I was most confident about, was one of the questions was, when you walk into a room, do you have executive presence? I think that might have been, I don't think that's exactly how it was worded. But that was the easiest one for me because I know that I can do that. All the other things are like, sometimes, maybe, that whole idea.
I think that is the strongest sense of fuel that I wouldn't be surprised that you had good executive presence, because that's pulling from your value system and your life stories. Who are you as a person? And when you know those things and you're connected to them, when you walk into a social situation, other people can see it.
And I think that's true. And people have said that to me. It's like, well, there's just something about you. And I was like, well, and that always makes me laugh, because one of my hobbies is doing things like astrology. And it's like, well, like, were you seeing my aura? Like that kind of thing. But, Julie, we need to take a break. But when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about women in leadership.
All right.
So everybody stay close. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly. I'm here with Julie Benezet, and we're talking about the journey of not knowing. And you know what, Julie? One of the things that you say in your book is and I'm quoting you, discovering strategic ideas that leadership is discovering strategic ideas that lift an organization to a better place and bring others along to make them happen. And, when I read that, I thought, geez, that's what most women do in their families and in their jobs and with their friends, but we never call it leadership. And, how many women do you know that run a household and say, well, I'm the leader in my household?
My mother for a start, yes.
Your mom did that?
Of course.
Good for her.
It was of an era where women were not expected to get jobs, and she graduated from Reed College in 1940 and was bound for Stanford to go to business school. And for family reasons, she ended up not being able to go. But she would have been a great COO in another era, and she ran her house like a COO. I mean, there were more systems and reporting and accounting.
Oh, my goodness. But don't you think a lot of women do that, but we just don't think of that as leadership?
Yeah, I see it when you talk to women who are transitioning out of the house and they're saying, I can't go in the job world, what can I do? And they have managed about 50 different functions in their home. They make decisions all the time, whether it's child care or how the mortgage is paid or to get the repairs lined up or whether to do them. It's a huge skill set. And they have to make a lot of hard decisions. And I think that women so underestimate the gravitas of what they do inside the four walls of their home and how transferable that is to any situation if they choose to go out of the home. You can have a plenty satisfying life within your own home, making a life for yourself and others that's important.
I used to walk for several years. I walked early in the morning with a woman who she used to put her kid on the bus, and then we would walk for an hour. And it worked great for me because I could come home, take a shower, be ready for work at 9. And when she started to get she would do so much volunteer work, and we would talk about it, and she would lead like something in the home and school or some they were selling something, and she would lead that particular team. And I would always say to her, are you writing this on your resume? Are you keeping track of this so you can transfer it to your resume?
Yeah.
You know, because I think we just don't give ourselves that kind of credit that these things are important things that once you do transfer out, and it doesn't matter if you're an empty nester or you're just deciding at 55 to go back and get a job outside the home. All of those things really count for something in the workplace.
It counts for a lot. I think of those women who used to run the school carnivals and the back-to-school night and so on. They would not have happened without those women's talent. It's absolutely transferable, and I was a working mom, so I wasn't able. I would come in the day of and pass cakes out and things like that. But I would tell them, "You are fantastic. I'm so appreciative because you're willing to do this. It's taking place, and it's important."
That's really true. All the volunteer work, I sometimes think about, well, I do a fundraiser every year, and if it wasn't for the wonderful women who are my committee, it just wouldn't come. The day of, it looks like, it's all about me because I'm running that show, but it was months of them doing everything to make that happen that day.
Yes. Lots and lots of details. Women are incredibly good about details.
Yeah. There was another thing that really made my ears perk up when I was reading The Journey of Not Knowing. And it's that you said that you make a big distinction between leadership and management. How does that make a difference to our goals?
That's a great question. Management is about making things go. It is, it's in effect the execution. It's keeping the budget. It's getting the people lined up. It's creating the schedule. It is, in effect, it's known. You know how to succeed in it. You know if the budget is met or not. Leadership is about having broader ideas to make something better, to lift it into another place, whether it's for you personally, whether you want to be healthier and change your whole health regime up and go out and help other people to do it, or whether you're leading a company to enter a different product line, whatever it is. But the commonality in leadership is you don't know how it's going to turn out, so it's unknown. And that in itself, because you're entering something that's new, can cause a lot of discomfort. So that is why I describe leadership as being comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing. And whether it is an idea for an organization, whether you're changing the communication culture, the product line, opening up a new office, or your own self, having a dream saying, hey, I want to go and move to France and set up a cooperative and a farm, and I barely speak French, but I want to try this out anyway. It's the same thing. In neither case do you know how it's going to come out. You don't even know if it's going to succeed. But all you know is you'd like to try it, and that's the difference. The manager already knows exactly what they're supposed to do. You go to France, you do this, you set it up, you get it done by this time, you spend this much money. Leadership is go there and see how you could build it out, and then what it's going to take for it to succeed.
That's a really good thing, Julie, because I think that a lot of times I notice, and it's not just women, I think it's with everybody, men too, that we say, well, I'd really like to do this, but I don't know how that's going to turn out. I don't know, like they're assessing whether they want to take that risk. Even sometimes if the risk is just a personal risk, it's not going to matter financially, or if it's not, when they're assessing things, it's not going to matter in the bigger picture of like their finances, but it does matter in the bigger picture of their souls.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the thing about when you try to change things up, and it is about taking chances, is not only do you not know how it's going to turn out, whether you yourself get the satisfaction of it succeeding, you don't know what the reaction of other people is going to be. Are they going to ridicule you? Are they going to think your idea is stupid? Are they going to see that it succeeds and not like you for it? There's all sorts of fantasies you can have about what can happen, and some of them can actually come true, which means if you want to try something, you need to be committed to wanting to do it knowing that resistance will be met along the way. And that stops a lot of people from trying it out in the first place, which is understandable. I don't criticize people if they're not comfortable doing that. The sorry fact of life, however, is with the amount of change we have going on, we are having to step out of our comfort zones to try new things in order just to live in the modern world. And when we started at Amazon, people did not want to buy online. This is a small example, but I don't want to put my credit card out into the Ethernet. Well, does anybody think about that anymore? No, because we've adjusted. We've had to, because that's where we get a lot of our goods and services.
It is really true, because I'm thinking about, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I was saying earlier that my spouse and I we have our business and personal goals, but then we have relationship goals. And I think that if you don't make accommodation for that, sometimes you just say, well, this is what I want to do, and then you don't make an accommodation for the time or the energy that relationship goal is going to take, and then one person gets disappointed, or you both just brush it aside, and it has a big impact on the relationship.
Yeah, very true. There's so much we cannot control, and we can influence, but we can't control the outcome. And I remember running an obesity clinic many years ago. I was called the Fat Lady, and which is lovely.
Yeah.
That was not my label, but I have a group of really, actually very amazing women, and we were working on a regimen that they could follow and change their eating habits, and they were very excited because it was putting them in new places, taking charge of their eating and taking charge of their bodies. And as they started to lose weight, we started to have some hubby sabotage.
Yes. Yes.
And whether it's weight or assertiveness or going out and getting a new job, whatever it is, that when you change, somebody else might say, change back. Because if you change, I have to change.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. Like, if you have a goal, and especially if it's affecting the family, you really have to get everybody's buy-in.
Yeah.
One of the things that you say, Julie, is where you say, let's get comfort. That you say you have to get comfortable with discomfort, and then you have a whole section on something near and dear to my heart. You call it accessing my core. So I want to talk a little bit about that, but explain what that means to my listeners.
It means figuring out what's important to you. In the book, I talked about it in the context. Sorry, it's very dry here. We don't have your cold weather. We just have a lot of we still have heat that bakes out your sinuses.
We could use a little heat these days out here with our 10-degree weather here.
I am embarrassed to say I'm looking out and it's only 50 degrees, so I'm sorry. But you run into a lot of things that are hard in life, and you have to know what's going to get you through it. And accessing your core is, what do you care about most? And one of the things I care about most is respecting people who are doing their best. And understanding that it's not going to be a perfect performance. But if they're working hard and doing their best and somebody else goes after them, attacks them, I will defend them. And that happened in something I describe in the book, and when some guy who hadn't even introduced himself in front of 30 people shrieked at me about putting us down. And I remember, and I describe this in the book, the room just went into two dimensions. I was so furious. All I knew was he had crossed a line, that you don't get to treat my people this way, who have done everything in their power to do something here, and that you don't like it's unfortunate, but you cannot criticize my people for lack of effort. And it was in retrospect. In the moment, I was just furious. In the retrospect, I went back and somebody asked me, what got you through this? And I thought about it. I said, he violated a very fundamental value of mine, and you don't get to do that. So that's what the core is about. We have more than one value, but they're just usually a handful that guide you, and it's important to know what they are.
You know what, Julie, I want to talk a little bit more about that, but we need to take another break. So if everybody just hangs in here with us, we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Julie, and we're talking about accessing my core and talking about like knowing your values. Like you say that it's about knowing who you are, what you stand up for, and your values, your personal history, and your dreams for the future. So in your values, like what do you notice about having a lack of clarity about, say, values when it comes to leadership, Julie?
I think a lot of people forget to take time to access them, so they allow things to happen that in retrospect gets them very upset.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has worked in an organization, whether it's your office, your church, or wherever it is, where there's somebody who's a brat, and they're allowed to be a brat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very disruptive. And somehow, why is that person in charge not doing anything about it? And when I've dealt with people like that in their managers or their bosses in a coaching setting, and we're talking about it, say, why are you allowing that to happen? Do you understand what the ripple effect is on your organization? And they'll go,
Yep,
and
I know.
because they haven't thought about the fact that when somebody is bratty and disrupting other people and getting them in the way, that they are allowing, making other people, I'm not saying this quite right, they're getting in the way of those people succeeding. And if you have a value about your team all doing the best, and you've got somebody in the middle of it who's making that impossible, you're not paying attention to your own value. So by articulating what your value is, I believe in respect of other team members and behaving in a way that maximizes their performance rather than gets in the way of it, then you're going to be part of this team. But the hardest thing is to say that behavior that is disrupting other people is unacceptable. It is not our value system. Is it something that's hard for people to do?
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's extremely important.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is hard to say, not acceptable. And yet I've seen good employees get wasted because somebody there was not a leadership. There wasn't that leadership at the top saying, no, that's not good. You can't do it that way, or however they would have said it.
Yeah.
And then that person doesn't excel in the way that they could have excelled if they were, kept in a better frame.
Right.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
I think what gets lost in that is people will perform to the lowest common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is bratty and doing mediocre work, everybody will say, okay, I get to be bratty and do mediocre work because that's allowed here. And you forget the ripple effect of that.
Yeah, and I say that to my spouse when he says, well, I can't believe somebody did whatever. And I'm like, but it's human nature. Some things are just human nature. If I can get away with it, then I'm going to get away with it. I taught elementary and middle school, so I know that if a kid can get away with it, They will get away with it.
Yeah.
I was curious about something, Julie, that in this accessing my core thing. What is it about our personal history that helps us navigate the new stuff in our life? You know, by the time we get to midlife, we've had a lot of stuff happen. And how does that help us navigate the new stuff?
Well, one thing is to keep track of it. I think a lot of things that have become so intuitive to us that we forget what really drives us. And yet when you take a backward look and look for themes, they do bubble to the surface that often they're lying back there in your personal life. Often when you're at a single-digit age, living in Colorado Springs until I was a teenager, I lived near Colorado College there, and I was living in a very compelling physical environment, being at the foot of Pikes Peak, and I was at a very compelling human environment, being around Colorado College where my dad worked. And I realized over the years that those had a lot to do in forming me. It caused me to go into real estate development. It caused me to spend a lot of time making organizations more functional. And it started with that piece. But as I talk about in the book, that there was actually a deeper piece. And the more deeply you look at what it is in your personal history that makes you, mm-hmm. the more fuel it gives you to go forward. I talk about that later in the context of drivers, your personal mm-hmm. drivers, what pushes you forward. And something I thought, why is it that I kept a shy kid, I'm not particularly introverted, but I was a shy kid, and why did I keep putting myself out there? Why was I always taking risks? And with the treehouse that I build and jump out of, anytime there was a group and they needed somebody to lead it, I'd stick my hand up in the air. Couldn't help myself, and it wasn't for attention. I want to get something done. But why? And it wasn't till actually that I wrote this book that I actually put the words to it, and that was being a kid, a girl, in the 50s and 60s, where they didn't expect you to turn out to be anything except be an arm ornament. Mm-hmm. And as I say there, I was a redhead, and I didn't see myself as anybody's arm ornament. As everybody understood in those times that redheads were not pretty. So I had to be something else. At the same time, I wanted the same things that all the boys around me had, the same opportunities. And it came down, and I watched my mother and her friends and how they were intelligent women that had a lot to bring to the equation, and they were treated like second-class citizens. And it really fired up my engines, and I realized that the subtext for me that took me through a career in being a finance lawyer, took me through a career being a corporate executive, is I wanted to count. I didn't want to be better than anybody, but I wanted to have the same opportunities that the other people had. And that is a very fundamental part of my personal history that has had a lot to do with the things that I've scarily gone out and done. I was often scared. But when you pull things up, it just makes you so happy and proud for yourself and for others that it's worth it. But the getting there could be hard, but I pull from that place.
So, and you do call those drivers to find out, your situational core drivers. But one of the things that in that same grouping of leadership, and I'm not remembering what you call it in your book, it was bigger bets, risks, and hooks and drivers.
Oh, the core four.
Thank you.
Well, you're doing very well. I'm impressed.
But those hooks are the things that I think a lot of us, you have to know the drivers to get you through the hooks, but what do you notice? You have 10 of them, and you break them down into 3 categories. What are the 3 hooks that you notice are most common among women?
Well, maybe I'll take a sentence or two to explain what a hook is. That the hooks, when we go after these dreams, whether it's to make the world safe for democracy, or women getting into politics, or changing up your own family life, is it's scary. And what can happen is while we're trying to do it, we'll get in these defensive behaviors to give us comfort, to get us away from the discomfort of making these changes. So the hooks that's what hooks are. And for your audience, you obviously know. And there are 10 that I see most commonly. They are the three most common, and you all recognize them. Are micromanagement, personalizing, and conflict avoidance. And I see micromanagement, of course. Anybody who doesn't know what that is has never worked or been in any kind of group. But that's people trying to take control of everything because they don't want to lose control. So they just touch every detail. And that gives them the sense they have some control, but it takes them away from the broader energy of what is needed to go after that bigger idea. The personalizing is confusing your value as a person with the value to the organization. It's a self-esteem thing. So if somebody says to you, after you've given a presentation, that presentation didn't go well, that was really bad. Now, that was not a very diplomatic way of them to put it, but they might just be anxious themselves, and they say it that way. And if you are personalizing, you'll go to the place of, oh, I'm just a screw-up. Oh, I'm bad. Where, in actuality, if a presentation didn't go well or anything doesn't go well, it's because you didn't read your stakeholders, your audience right. It could have been that the presentation you gave was on a topic they'd actually heard about recently, and you didn't do enough homework to know that they'd already heard about it. Or they found it complicated, and they were kind of confused, and in that case, you needed to understand better what their baseline was. Or they had just been told that a bunch of the layoffs are about to happen, and they weren't paying attention because they were stressed out, in which case you didn't know what the background was. And so if you're getting through the anxiety of what went on there and not getting hooked, you'll go back and research the situation, and then you can rehabilitate as needed. If you're personalizing, which women really do a lot, men do it too, but women really get into it and say, it's something bad with me. You know, these people, this group's not happy because of something I did. Then you're losing all the data of what is really going on there that you can have an impact on. And then the third, conflict avoidance, and that's really at its essence, it's fear of standing alone. That if you have an idea that you want to go propose to somebody, or you have to talk to them about something, and you anticipate that they're going to disagree, and that's uncomfortable, for you to hold yourself through that, you have to know that you're going to have to hang on to what's important to you. And that's scary for a lot of people. And you also don't know how they're going to behave. Are they going to yell back? Are they going to walk out of the room? Are they going to cry? Are they going to demonstrate to you that you're wrong? All of those can be really uncomfortable. And conflict avoidance shows up all over the place. It's the number one reason why people go into coaching as executives.
Julie, this was we have to run, but this was so interesting, and I love what you say in The Journey of Not Knowing About it, hooks and drivers and the core four. And so tell my listeners how they can get a copy.
You can go to Amazon or just type in Google The Journey of Not Knowing. You can go to my website, juliebenezet.com, or you can go to the Journey site, The Journey of Not Knowing.
And you can go to Victorious Woman because I put both your website and the link to Amazon on today's radio wrap-up. Julie, thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And Victory Chicks and you guys, I hope you have a great weekend too. We're running late, so I'm just going to scoot. I'm just going to give you this. This was quote is from Sarah Van Breathneck, and you remember her. Some of you will remember her. She was an Oprah favorite. And what she said was, a fresh start, a new chapter in life waiting to be written, new questions to be asked, embraced, and loved, answers to be discovered, and then lived in this transformative year of delight and self-discovery. So today, carve out a quiet interlude for yourself in which to dream pen in hand. Only dreams give birth to change. I love that, and that's what I'm giving you for the weekend and for the week. If you haven't already started dreaming, take some time this weekend to dream, and then come back with me next Friday for the Friday Happy Hour. Glad you were here today. Thanks for coming. Stay warm. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.